The bull's eyes watched it, and turned with the swing, but he would not charge. He was waiting for Manuel. Manuel was worried. There was nothing to do but go in, corto y derecho. He profiled close to the bull, crossed the muleta in front of his body, and charged. As he pushed in the sword, he jerked his body to the left to clear the horn. The bull passed him, and the sword shot up in the air, twinkling under the arc lights, to fall red-hilted on the sand. Manuel ran over and picked it up. It was bent, and he straightened it over his knee. As he came running toward the bull, fixed again now, he passed Hernandez, standing with his cape. "He's all bone," the boy said encouragingly. Manuel nodded, wiping his face. He put the bloody handkerchief in his pocket. There was the bull. He was close to the barrera now. Damn him! Maybe he was all bone. Maybe there was not any place for the sword to go in. The hell there wasn't. He'd show them. He tried a pass with the muleta, and the bull did not move. Manuel chopped the muleta back and forth in front of the bull. Nothing doing. He furled the muleta, drew the sword out, profiled, and drove in on the bull. He felt the sword buckle as he shoved it in, leaning his weight on it, and then it shot high in the air, end over ending into the crowd. Manuel had jerked clear as the sword jumped. The first cushions, thrown down out of the dark, missed him. Then one hit him in the face, his bloody face looking toward the crowd. They were coming down fast, spotting the sand. Somebody threw an empty champagne bottle from close range. It hit Manuel on the foot. He stood there, watching the dark, where the things were coming from. Then something whished through the air and struck by him. Manuel leaned over and picked it up. It was his sword. He straightened it over his knee and gestured with it to the crowd. "Thank you," he said. "Thank you. Oh, the dirty bastards, dirty bastards. Oh, the lousy, dirty bastards." He kicked into a cushion as he ran. There was the bull, the same as ever. "All right, you dirty, lousy bastard." Manuel passed the muleta in front of the bull's black muzzle. Nothing doing. "You won't? All right." He stepped close and jammed the sharp peak of the muleta into the bull's damp muzzle. The bull was on him as he jumped back, and as he tripped on a cushion, he felt the horn go into him, into his side. He grabbed the horn with his two hands and rode backward, holding tight onto the place. The bull tossed him, and he was clear. He lay still. It was all right. The bull was gone. He got up, coughing, and feeling broken and gone. The dirty bastards! "Give me the sword!" he shouted. "Give me the stuff!" Fuentes came up with the muleta and the sword. Hernandez put his arm around him. "Go on to the infirmary, man," he said. "Don't be a damn fool." "Get away from me," Manuel said. "Get to hell away from me." He twisted free. Hernandez shrugged his shoulders. Manuel ran toward the bull. There was the bull, standing, heavy, firmly planted. "All right, you bastard." Manuel drew the sword out of the muleta, sighted with the same movement, and flung himself onto the bull. He felt the sword go in all the way, right up to the guard, 4 fingers and his thumb into the bull. The blood was hot on his knuckles, and he was on top of the bull. The bull lurched with him as he lay on and seemed to sink. Then he was standing clear. He looked at the bull going down slowly over on his side, then suddenly 4 feet in the air. Then he gestured at the crowd, his hand warm from the bull blood. "All right, you bastards." He wanted to say something, but he started to cough. It was hot and choking. He looked down for the muleta. He must go over and salute the president. President, hell! He was sitting down looking at something. It was the bull, his 4 feet up, thick tongue out, things crawling around on his belly and under his legs, crawling where the hair was thin. Dead bull. To hell with the bull, to hell with them all. He started to get to his feet and commenced to cough. He sat down again, coughing. Somebody came and pushed him up. They carried him across the ring to the infirmary, running with him across the sand, standing blocked at the gate as the mules came in, then around under the dark passageway, men grunting as they took him up the stairway, and then laid him down. The doctor and 2 men in white were waiting for him. They laid him out on the table. They were cutting away his shirt. Manuel felt tired. His whole chest felt scalding inside. He started to cough, and they held something to his mouth. Everybody was very busy. There was an electric light in his eyes. He shut his eyes. He heard someone coming very heavily up the stairs. Then he did not hear it. Then he heard a noise far off. That was the crowd. Well, somebody would have to kill his other bull. They had cut away all his shirt. The doctor smiled at him. There was Retana. "Hello, Retana," Manuel said. He could not hear his voice. Retana smiled at him and said something. Manuel could not hear it. Turrito stood beside the table, bending over where the doctor was working. He was in his picador clothes without his hat. Turrito said something to him. Manuel could not hear it. Turrito was speaking to Retana. One of the men in white smiled and handed Retana a pair of scissors. Retana gave them to Turrito. Turrito said something to Manuel. He could not hear it. To hell with this operating table. He'd been on plenty of operating tables before. He was not going to die. There would be a priest if he was going to die. Turrito was saying something to him, holding up the scissors. That was it. They were going to cut off his coleta. They were going to cut off his pigtail. Manuel sat up on the operating table. The doctor stepped back angry. Someone grabbed him and held him. "You couldn't do a thing like that, Manos," he said. He heard suddenly, clearly, Turrito's voice. "That's all right," Turrito said. "I won't do it. I was joking." "I was going good," Manuel said. "I didn't have any luck. That was all." Manuel lay back. They had put something over his face. It was all familiar. He inhaled deeply. He felt very tired. He was very, very tired. They took the thing away from his face. "I was going good," Manuel said weakly. "I was going great." Retana looked at Turrito and started for the door. "I'll stay here with him," Turrito said. Retana shrugged his shoulders. Manuel opened his eyes and looked at Turrito. "Wasn't I going good, Manos?" he asked for confirmation. "Sure," said Turrito. "You were going great." The doctor's assistant put the cone over Manuel's face, and he inhaled deeply. Zurito stood awkwardly, watching. In another country. In the fall, the war was always there, but we did not go to it any more. It was cold in the fall in Milan, and the dark came very early. Then the electric lights came on, and it was pleasant along the streets looking in the windows. There was much game hanging outside the shops, and the snow powdered in the fur of the foxes, and the wind blew their tails. The deer hung stiff and heavy and empty, and small birds blew in the wind, and the wind turned their feathers. It was a cold fall, and the wind came down from the mountains. We were all at the hospital every afternoon, and there were different ways of walking across the town through the dusk to the hospital. 2 of the ways were alongside canals, but they were long. Always, though, you crossed a bridge across a canal to enter the hospital. There was a choice of 3 bridges. On one of them a woman sold roasted chestnuts. It was warm, standing in front of her charcoal fire, and the chestnuts were warm afterward in your pocket. The hospital was very old and very beautiful, and you entered through a gate and walked across a courtyard and out a gate on the other side. There were usually funerals starting from the courtyard. Beyond the old hospital were the new brick pavilions, and there we met every afternoon, and were all very polite and interested in what was the matter, and sat in the machines that were to make so much difference. The doctor came up to the machine where I was sitting and said, "What did you like best to do before the war? Did you practice a sport?" I said, "Yes, football." "Good," he said. "You will be able to play football again, better than ever." My knee did not bend, and the leg dropped straight from the knee to the ankle without a calf, and the machine was to bend the knee and make it move, as in riding a tricycle. But it did not bend yet, and instead the machine lurched when it came to the bending part. The doctor said, "That will all pass. You are a fortunate young man. You will play football again, like a champion." In the next machine was a major who had a little hand like a baby's. He winked at me when the doctor examined his hand, which was between 2 leather straps that bounced up and down and flapped the stiff fingers, and said, "And will I, too, play football, Captain Doctor?" He had been a very great fencer, and before the war, the greatest fencer in Italy. The doctor went to his office in a back room and brought a photograph which showed a hand that had been withered almost as small as the major's before it had taken a machine course, and after was a little larger. The major held the photograph with his good hand and looked at it very carefully. "A wound?" he asked. "An industrial accident," the doctor said. "Very interesting. Very interesting," the major said, and handed it back to the doctor. "You have confidence?" "No," said the major. There were 3 boys who came each day who were about the same age I was. They were all 3 from Milan, and one of them was to be a lawyer, and one was to be a painter, and one had intended to be a soldier, and after we were finished with the machines, sometimes we walked back together to the Café Cova, which was next door to the Scala. We walked the short way through the communist quarter because we were 4 together. The people hated us because we were officers, and from a wine shop someone would call out, "Abbasso gli ufficiali," as we passed. Another boy, who walked with us sometimes and made us 5, wore a black silk handkerchief across his face, because he had no nose then, and his face was to be rebuilt. He had gone out to the front from the military academy and been wounded within an hour after he had gone into the front line for the first time. They rebuilt his face, but he came from a very old family, and they could never get the nose exactly right. He went to South America and worked in a bank. But this was a long time ago, and then we did not any of us know how it was going to be afterward. We only knew then that there was always the war, but that we were not going to it anymore. We all had the same medals except the boy with the black silk bandage across his face, and he had not been at the front long enough to get any medals. The tall boy with a very pale face who was to be a lawyer had been a lieutenant of Arditi, and had 3 medals of the sort we each had only 1 of. He had lived a very long time with death, and was a little detached. We were all a little detached, and there was nothing that held us together except that we met every afternoon at the hospital. Although, as we walked to the cova through the tough part of town, walking in the dark, with light and singing coming out of the wine shops, and sometimes having to walk into the street when the men and women would crowd together on the sidewalk so that we would have had to jostle them to get by, we felt held together by there being something that had happened that they, the people who disliked us, did not understand. We ourselves all understood the cova, where it was rich and warm and not too brightly lighted, and noisy and smoky at certain hours, and there were always girls at the table, and the illustrated papers on a rack on the wall. The girls at the cova were very patriotic, and I found that the most patriotic people in Italy were the cafe girls, and I believe they are still patriotic. The boys at first were very polite about my medals and asked me what I had done to get them. I showed them the papers, which were written in very beautiful language and full of fratellanza and abnegazione, but which really said, with the adjectives removed, that I had been given the medals because I was an American. After that, their manner changed a little toward me, although I was their friend against outsiders. I was a friend, but I was never really one of them after they had read the citations, because it had been different with them, and they had done very different things to get their medals. I had been wounded, it was true, but we all knew that being wounded, after all, was really an accident. I was never ashamed of the ribbons, though, and sometimes, after the cocktail hour, I would imagine myself having done all the things they had done to get their medals. But, walking home at night through the empty streets with the cold wind and all the shops closed, trying to keep near the street lights, I knew that I would never have done such things, and I was very much afraid to die, and often lay in bed at night by myself, afraid to die, and wondering how I would be when I went back to the front again. The 3 with the medals were like hunting hawks, and I was not a hawk, although I might seem a hawk to those who had never hunted. They, the 3, knew better, and so we drifted apart. But I stayed good friends with the boy who had been wounded his first day at the front, because he would never know now how he would have turned out. So he could never be accepted either. And I liked him, because I thought perhaps he would not have turned out to be a hawk either. The major, who had been the great fencer, did not believe in bravery, and spent much time, while we sat in the machines, correcting my grammar. He had complimented me on how I spoke Italian, and we talked together very easily. One day I had said that Italian seemed such an easy language to me that I could not take a great interest in it. Everything was so easy to say. "Ah, yes," the Major said. "Why, then, do you not take up the use of grammar?" So we took up the use of grammar, and soon Italian was such a difficult language that I was afraid to talk to him until I had the grammar straight in my head. The Major came very regularly to the hospital. I do not think he ever missed a day, although I am sure he did not believe in the machines. There was a time when none of us believed in the machines. And one day the Major said it was all nonsense. The machines were new then, and it was we who were to prove them. It was an idiotic idea, he said, a theory like another. I had not learned my grammar, and he said I was a stupid, impossible disgrace, and he was a fool to have bothered with me. He was a small man, and he sat straight up in his chair with his right hand thrust into the machine and looked straight ahead at the wall while the straps thumped up and down with his fingers in them. "What will you do when the war is over, if it is over?" he asked me. "Speak grammatically." "I will go to the States." "Are you married?" "No, but I hope to be." "The more of a fool you are," he said. He seemed very angry. "A man must not marry." "Why, Signor Maggiore?" "Don't call me Signor Maggiore." "Why must not a man marry?" "He cannot marry. He cannot marry," he said angrily. "If he is to lose everything, he should not place himself in a position to lose that. He should not place himself in a position to lose. He should find things he cannot lose." He spoke very angrily and bitterly, and looked straight ahead while he talked. "But why should he necessarily lose it?" "He'll lose it," the Major said. He was looking at the wall. Then he looked down at the machine and jerked his little hand out from between the straps and slapped it hard against his thigh. "He'll lose it," he almost shouted. "Don't argue with me." Then he called to the attendant who ran the machines. "Come and turn this damned thing off." He went back into the other room for the light treatment and the massage. Then I heard him ask the doctor if he might use his telephone, and he shut the door. When he came back into the room, I was sitting in another machine. He was wearing his cape and had his cap on, and he came directly toward my machine and put his arm on my shoulder. "I am so sorry," he said, and patted me on the shoulder with his good hand. "I would not be rude. My wife has just died. You must forgive me." "Oh," I said, feeling sick for him. "I am so sorry." He stood there, biting his lower lip. "It is very difficult," he said. "I cannot resign myself." He looked straight past me and out through the window. Then he began to cry. "I am utterly unable to resign myself," he said, and choked. And then, crying, his head up, looking at nothing, carrying himself straight and soldierly with tears on both his cheeks and biting his lips, he walked past the machines and out the door. The doctor told me that the Major's wife, who was very young, and whom he had not married until he was definitely invalided out of the war, had died of pneumonia. She had been sick only a few days. No one expected her to die. The Major did not come to the hospital for 3 days. Then he came at the usual hour, wearing a black band on the sleeve of his uniform. When he came back, there were large framed photographs around the wall of all sorts of wounds before and after they had been cured by the machines. In front of the machine the Major used, were 3 photographs of hands like his that were completely restored. I do not know where the doctor got them. I always understood we were the first to use the machines. The photographs did not make much difference to the Major, because he only looked out of the window. Hills like white elephants. The hills across the valley of the Ebro were long and white. On this side there was no shade and no trees, and the station was between 2 lines of rails in the sun. Close against the side of the station there was the warm shadow of the building, and a curtain made of strings of bamboo beads hung across the open door into the bar to keep out flies. The American and the girl with him sat at a table in the shade outside the building. It was very hot, and the express from Barcelona would come in 40 minutes. It stopped at this junction for 2 minutes and went on to Madrid. "What should we drink?" the girl asked. She had taken off her hat and put it on the table. "It's pretty hot," the man said. "Let's drink beer." "Dos cervezas," the man said into the curtain. "Big ones?" a woman asked from the doorway. "Yes, 2 big ones." The woman brought 2 glasses of beer and 2 felt pads. She put the felt pads and the beer glasses on the table and looked at the man and the girl. The girl was looking off at the line of hills. They were white in the sun, and the country was brown and dry. "They look like white elephants," she said. "I've never seen one." The man drank his beer. "No, you wouldn't have." "I might have," the man said. "Just because you say I wouldn't have doesn't prove anything." The girl looked at the bead curtain. "They've painted something on it," she said. "What does it say?" "Anís del Toro. It's a drink." "Could we try it?" The man called. "Listen!" through the curtain. The woman came out from the bar. "4 reales. We want 2 Anís del Toro." "With water?" "Do you want it with water?" "I don't know," the girl said. "Is it good with water?" "It's all right." "You want them with water?" asked the woman. "Yes, with water." "It tastes like licorice," the girl said, and put the glass down. "That's the way with everything." "Yes," said the girl, "everything tastes of licorice, especially all the things you've waited so long for, like absinthe." "Oh, cut it out." "You started it," the girl said. "I was being amused. I was having a fine time." "Well, let's try and have a fine time." "All right." "I was trying. I said the mountains looked like white elephants. Wasn't that bright?" "That was bright." "I wanted to try this new drink. That's all we do, isn't it? Look at things and try new drinks." "I guess so." The girl looked across at the hills. "They're lovely hills," she said. "They don't really look like white elephants. I just meant the coloring of their skin through the trees." "Should we have another drink?" "All right." The warm wind blew the bead curtain against the table. "The beer's nice and cool," the man said. "It's lovely," the girl said. "It's really an awfully simple operation, Jig," the man said. "It's not really an operation at all." The girl looked at the ground the table legs rested on. "I know you wouldn't mind it, Jig. It's really not anything. It's just to let the air in." The girl did not say anything. "I'll go with you, and I'll stay with you all the time." They just let the air in, and then it's all perfectly natural. "Then what do we do afterward?" We'll be fine afterward, just like we were before."
"What makes you think so?"
"That's the only thing that bothers us. It's the only thing that made us unhappy." The girl looked at the bead curtain, put her hand out, and took hold of 2 of the strings of beads.
"And you think then we'll be all right and be happy?"
"I know we will. We don't have to be afraid. I've known lots of people that have done it."
"So have I," said the girl. And afterward they were all so happy.
"Well," the man said, "if you don't want to, you don't have to. I wouldn't have you do it if you didn't want to. But I know it's perfectly simple."
"And you really want to?"
"I think it's the best thing to do. But I don't want you to do it if you don't really want to."
"And if I do it, you'll be happy and things will be like they were and you'll love me?"
"I love you now. You know I love you."
"I know. But if I do it, then it will be nice again if I say things are like white elephants, and you'll like it."
"I'll love it. I love it now, but I just can't think about it. You know how I get when I worry."
"If I do it, you won't ever worry?"
"I won't worry about that, because it's perfectly simple."
"Then I'll do it. I don't care about me."
"What do you mean?"
"I don't care about me."
"Well, I care about you."
"Oh, yes, but I don't care about me. And I'll do it, and then everything will be fine."
"I don't want you to do it if you feel that way."
The girl stood up and walked to the end of the station.
Across on the other side were fields of grain and trees along the banks of the Ebro. Far away beyond the river were mountains. The shadow of a cloud moved across the field of grain, and she saw the river through the trees.
"And we could have all this," she said, "and we could have everything. And every day we make it more impossible."
"What did you say?"
"I said we could have everything."
"We can have everything."
"No, we can't."
"We can have the whole world."
"No, we can't."
"We can go everywhere."
"No, we can't. It isn't ours anymore."
"It's ours."
"No, it isn't. And once they take it away, you never get it back."
"But they haven't taken it away."
"We'll wait and see."
"Come on back in the shade," he said. "You mustn't feel that way."
"I don't feel any way," the girl said. "I just know things."
"I don't want you to do anything that you don't want to do."
"Not that isn't good for me," she said. "I know. Could we have another beer?"
"All right. But you've got to realize—"
"I realize," the girl said. "Can't we maybe stop talking?"
They sat down at the table, and the girl looked across at the hills on the dry side of the valley, and the man looked at her and at the table. "You've got to realize," he said, "that I don't want you to do it if you don't want to. I'm perfectly willing to go through with it if it means anything to you."
"Doesn't it mean anything to you? We could get along."
"Of course it does. But I don't want anybody but you. I don't want anyone else, and I know it's perfectly simple."
"Yes. You know it's perfectly simple."
"It's all right for you to say that, but I do know it."
"Would you do something for me now?"
"I'd do anything for you."
"Would you please, 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 please stop talking?"
He did not say anything, but looked at the bags against the wall of the station. There were labels on them from all the hotels where they had spent nights. "But I don't want you to," he said. "I don't care anything about it."
"I'll scream,"
the girl said.
The woman came out through the curtains with 2 glasses of beer and put them down on the damp felt pads. "The train comes in 5 minutes," she said. "What did she say?" asked the girl. "That the train is coming in 5 minutes." The girl smiled brightly at the woman to thank her. "I'd better take the bags over to the other side of the station," the man said. She smiled at him. "All right. Then come back and we'll finish the beer." He picked up the 2 heavy bags and carried them around the station to the other tracks. He looked up the tracks but could not see the train. Coming back, he walked through the bar room where people waiting for the train were drinking. He drank an anise at the bar and looked at the people. They were all waiting reasonably for the train. He went out through the bead curtain. She was sitting at the table and smiled at him. "Do you feel better?" he asked. "I feel fine," she said. "There's nothing wrong with me. I feel fine." The Killers. The door of Henry's lunchroom opened and 2 men came in. They sat down at the counter. "What's yours?" George asked them. "I don't know," one of the men said. "What do you want to eat, Al?" "I don't know," said Al. "I don't know what I want to eat." Outside it was getting dark. The street light came on outside the window. The 2 men at the counter read the menu. From the other end of the counter, Nick Adams watched them. He had been talking to George when they came in. "I'll have a roast pork tenderloin with applesauce and mashed potatoes," the first man said. "It isn't ready yet." "What the hell do you put it on the card for?" "That's the dinner," George explained. "You can get that at 6 o'clock. George looked at the clock on the wall behind the counter. "It's 5 o'clock. "The clock says 20 minutes past 5, the second man said. "It's 20 minutes fast." "Oh, to hell with the clock," the first man said. "What have you got to eat?" "I can give you any kind of sandwiches," George said. "You could have ham and eggs, bacon and eggs, liver and bacon, or a steak." "Give me chicken croquettes with green peas and cream sauce and mashed potatoes." "That's the dinner." "Everything we want's the dinner, eh? That's the way you work it?" "I can give you ham and eggs, bacon and eggs, liver—" "I'll take ham and eggs," the man called Al said. He wore a derby hat and a black overcoat buttoned across the chest. His face was small and white, and he had tight lips. He wore a silk muffler and gloves. "Give me bacon and eggs," said the other man. He was about the same size as Al. Their faces were different, but they were dressed like twins. Both wore overcoats too tight for them. They sat leaning forward, their elbows on the counter. "Got anything to drink?" Al asked. "Silver beer, bevo, ginger ale," George said. "I mean, you got anything to drink?" "Just those I said." "This is a hot town," said the other. "What do they call it?" "Summit." "Ever hear of it?" Al asked his friend. "No," said the friend. "What do you do here nights?" Al asked. "They eat the dinner," his friend said. "They all come here and eat the big dinner." "That's right," George said. "So you think that's right?" Al asked George. "Sure." "You're a pretty bright boy, aren't you?" "Sure," said George. "Well, you're not," said the other little man. "Is he, Al?" "He's dumb," said Al. He turned to Nick. "What's your name?" "Adams." "Another bright boy," Al said. "Ain't he a bright boy, Max?" The town's full of bright boys, Max said. George put the two platters, one of ham and eggs, the other of bacon and eggs, on the counter. He set down two side dishes of fried potatoes and closed the wicket into the kitchen. "Which is yours?" he asked Al. "Don't you remember?" "Ham and eggs." "Just a bright boy," Max said. He leaned forward and took the ham and eggs. Both men ate with their gloves on. George watched them eat. "What are you looking at?" Max looked at George. "Nothing." "The hell you were. You were looking at me." "Maybe the boy meant it for a joke, Max," Al said. George laughed. "You don't have to laugh," Max said to him. "You don't have to laugh at all, see?" "All right," said George. "So he thinks it's all right." Max turned to Al. "He thinks it's all right. That's a good one." "Oh, he's a thinker," Al said. They went on eating. "What's the bright boy's name down the counter?" Al asked Max. "A bright boy," Max said to Nick. "You go around on the other side of the counter with your boyfriend." "What's the idea?" Nick asked. "There isn't any idea." "You better go around, bright boy," Al said. Nick went around behind the counter. "What's the idea?" George asked. "None of your damn business," Al said. "Who's out in the kitchen?" "The nigger." "What do you mean, the nigger?" "The nigger that cooks. Tell him to come in." "What's the idea?" "Tell him to come in." "Where do you think you are?" "We know damn well where we are," the man called Max said. "Do we look silly?" "You talk silly," Al said to him. "What the hell do you argue with this kid for?" "Listen," he said to George. "Tell the nigger to come out here." "What are you going to do to him?" "Nothing. Use your head, bright boy. What would we do to a nigger?" George opened the slit that opened back into the kitchen. "Sam," he called, "come in here a minute." The door to the kitchen opened, and the nigger came in. "What was it?" he asked. The two men at the counter took a look at him. "All right, nigger, you stand right there," Al said. Sam, the nigger, standing in his apron, looked at the two men sitting at the counter. "Yes, sir," he said. Al got down from his stool. "I'm going back to the kitchen with the nigger and bright boy," he said. "Going back to the kitchen, nigger. You go with him, bright boy." The little man walked after Nick and Sam, the cook, back into the kitchen. The door shut after them. The man called Max sat at the counter opposite George. He didn't look at George, but looked in the mirror that ran along back of the counter. Henry's had been made over from a saloon into a lunch counter. The man called Max sat at the counter opposite George. He didn't look at George, but looked in the mirror that ran along back of the counter. Henry's had been made over from a saloon into a lunch counter. "Well, bright boy," Max said, looking into the mirror, "why don't you say something?" "What's it all about?" "Hey, Al," Max called. "Bright boy wants to know what it's all about." "Why don't you tell him?" Al's voice came from the kitchen. "What do you think it's all about?" "I don't know." "What do you think?" Max looked into the mirror all the time he was talking. "I wouldn't say." "Hey, Al, bright boy says he wouldn't say what he thinks it's all about." "I can hear you all right," Al said from the kitchen. He had propped open the slit that dishes passed through into the kitchen with a catsup bottle. "Listen, bright boy," he said from the kitchen to George. "Stand a little further along the bar."
You move a little to the left, Max. He was like a photographer arranging for a group picture. Talk to me, bright boy, Max said. What do you think's going to happen? George did not say anything. I'll tell you, Max said. We're going to kill a Swede. Do you know a big Swede named Ole Anderson? Yes. He comes here to eat every night, don't he? Sometimes he comes here. He comes here at 6 o'clock, don't he? If he comes. We know all that, bright boy, Max said. Talk about something else. Ever go to the movies? Once in a while. You ought to go to the movies more. The movies are fine for a bright boy like you. What are you going to kill Ole Anderson for? What did he ever do to you? He never had a chance to do anything to us. He never even seen us. And he's only going to see us once, Al said from the kitchen. What are you going to kill him for, then? George asked. We're killing him for a friend. Just to oblige a friend, bright boy. Shut up, said Al from the kitchen. You talk too goddamn much. Well, I gotta keep bright boy amused. Don't I, bright boy? You talk too damn much, Al said. The nigger and my bright boy are amused by themselves. I got them tied up like a couple of girlfriends in the convent. I suppose you were in a convent? You never know. You were in a kosher convent, that's where you were. George looked up at the clock. If anybody comes in, you tell them the cook is off, and if they keep after it, you tell them you'll go back and cook yourself. Do you get that, bright boy? All right, George said. What are you going to do with us afterward? That'll depend, Max said. That's one of those things you never know at the time. George looked up at the clock. It was 6:15. The door from the street opened. A streetcar motorman came in. Hello, George, he said. Can I get supper? Sam's gone out, George said. He'll be back in about half an hour. I better go up the street, the motorman said. George looked at the clock. It was 20 minutes past 6. That was nice, bright boy. You're a regular little gentleman. He knew I'd blow his head off, Al said from the kitchen. No, said Max, it ain't that. Bright boy is nice. He's a nice boy. I like him. At 6:55, George said, He's not coming. 2 other people had been in the lunchroom. Once George had gone out to the kitchen and made a ham and egg sandwich to go that a man wanted to take with him. Inside the kitchen he saw Al, his derby hat tipped back, sitting on a stool beside the wicket with the muzzle of a sawed-off shotgun resting on the ledge. Nick and the cook were back to back in the corner, a towel tied in each of their mouths. George had cooked the sandwich, wrapped it up in oiled paper, put it in a bag, brought it in, and the man had paid for it and gone out. Bright boy can do everything, Max said. He can cook and everything. You'd make some girl a nice wife, bright boy. Yes, George said. Your friend Ole Anderson isn't going to come. We'll give him 10 minutes, Max said. Max watched the mirror and the clock. The hands of the clock marked 7 o'clock and then 5 minutes past 7. Come on, Al, said Max. We better go. He's not coming. Better give him 5 minutes, Al said from the kitchen. In the 5 minutes, a man came in, and George explained that the cook was sick. Why the hell don't you get another cook? The man asked. Aren't you running a lunch counter? He went out. Come on, Al, Max said. What about the two bright boys and the nigger? They're all right. You think so? Sure, we're through with it. I don't like it, said Al. It's sloppy. You talk too much. Ah, what the hell, said Max. We gotta keep amused, haven't we? You talk too much all the same, Al said. He came out from the kitchen. The cut-off barrels of the shotgun made a slight bulge under the waist of his too tight-fitting overcoat. He straightened his coat with his gloved hands. So long, bright boy, he said to George. You got a lot of luck. That's the truth, Max said. You ought to play the races, bright boy. The two of them went out the door. George watched them through the window pass under the arc light and cross the street. In their tight overcoats and derby hats, they looked like a vaudeville team. George went back through the swinging door into the kitchen and untied Nick and the cook. I don't want any more of that, said Sam the cook. I don't want any more of that. Nick stood up. He had never had a towel in his mouth before. Say, he said, what the hell? He was trying to swagger it off. They were going to kill Ole Anderson, George said. They were going to shoot him when he came in to eat. Ole Anderson? Sure. The cook felt the corners of his mouth with his thumbs. They all gone? He asked. Yeah, said George. They're gone now. I don't like it, said the cook. I don't like any of it at all. Listen, George said to Nick, you better go see Ole Anderson. All right. You better not have anything to do with it at all, Sam the cook said. You better stay way out of it. Don't go if you don't want to, George said. Mixing up in this ain't gonna get you anywhere, the cook said. You stay out of it. I'll go see him, Nick said to George. Where does he live? The cook turned away. Little boys always know what they want to do, he said. He lives up at Hirsch's rooming house, George said to Nick. I'll go up there. Outside, the arc light shone through the bare branches of a tree. Nick walked up the street beside the car tracks and turned at the next arc light down a side street. 3 houses up the street was Hirsch's rooming house. Nick walked up the 2 steps and pushed the bell. A woman came to the door. Is Ole Anderson here? Do you want to see him? Yes, if he's in. Nick followed the woman up a flight of stairs and back to the end of a corridor. She knocked on the door. Who is it? It's somebody to see you, Mr. Anderson, the woman said. It's Nick Adams. Come in. Nick opened the door and went into the room. Ole Anderson was lying on the bed with all his clothes on. He had been a heavyweight prize fighter, and he was too long for the bed. He lay with his head on 2 pillows. He did not look at Nick. What was it? He asked. I was up at Henry's, Nick said, and 2 fellas came in and tied up me and the cook, and they said they were going to kill you. It sounded silly when he said it. Ole Anderson said nothing. They put us out in the kitchen, Nick went on. They were going to shoot you when you came in to supper. Ole Anderson looked at the wall and did not say anything. George thought I'd better come and tell you about it. There isn't anything I can do about it, Ole Anderson said. I'll tell you what they were like. I don't want to know what they were like, Ole Anderson said. He looked at the wall. Thanks for coming to tell me about it. That's all right. Nick looked at the big man lying on the bed. Don't you want me to go and see the police? No, Ole Anderson said.
That wouldn't do any good. Isn't there something I could do? No. There ain't anything to do. Maybe it was just a bluff. No. It ain't just a bluff. Ole Anderson rolled over toward the wall. The only thing is, he said, talking toward the wall, I just can't make up my mind to go out. I've been in here all day. Couldn't you get out of town? No, Ole Anderson said. I'm through with all that running around. He looked at the wall. There ain't anything to do now. Couldn't you fix it up some way? No, I got in wrong. He talked in the same flat voice. There ain't anything to do. After a while, I'll make up my mind to go out. I better go back and see George, Nick said. So long, said Ole Anderson. He did not look toward Nick. Thanks for coming around. Nick went out. As he shut the door, he saw Ole Anderson with all his clothes on, lying on the bed, looking at the wall. He's been in his room all day, the landlady said downstairs. I guess he don't feel well. I said to him, Mr. Anderson, you ought to go out and take a walk on a nice fall day like this. But he didn't feel like it. He doesn't want to go out. I'm sorry he don't feel well, the woman said. He's an awfully nice man. He was in the ring, you know. I know it. You'd never know it except from the way his face is, the woman said. They stood talking just inside the street door. He's just as gentle. Well, good night, Mrs. Hirsch, Nick said. I'm not Mrs. Hirsch, the woman said. She owns the place. I just look after it for her. I'm Mrs. Bell. Well, good night, Mrs. Bell, Nick said. Good night, the woman said. Nick walked up the dark street to the corner under the arc light, and then along the car tracks to Henry's eating house. George was inside, back of the counter. Did you see Ole? Yes, said Nick. He's in his room, and he won't go out. The cook opened the door from the kitchen when he heard Nick's voice. I don't even listen to it, he said, and shut the door. Did you tell him about it? George asked. Sure, I told him. But he knows what it's all about. What's he going to do? Nothing. They'll kill him. I guess they will. He must have got mixed up in something in Chicago. I guess so, said Nick. It's a hell of a thing. It's an awful thing, Nick said. They did not say anything. George reached down for a towel and wiped the counter. I wonder what he did, Nick said. Double-crossed somebody. That's what they killed them for. I'm going to get out of this town, Nick said. Yes, said George. That's a good thing to do. I can't stand to think about him waiting in the room and knowing he's going to get it. It's too damned awful. Well, said George, you better not think about it. Che ti dice la patria? The road of the pass was hard and smooth and not yet dusty in the early morning. Below were the hills with oak and chestnut trees, and far away below was the sea. On the other side were snowy mountains. We came down from the pass through wooded country. There were bags of charcoal piled beside the road, and through the trees we saw charcoal burners' huts. It was Sunday, and the road, rising and falling, but always dropping away from the altitude of the pass,
went through the scrub woods and through villages. Outside the villages there were fields with vines. The fields were brown and the vines coarse and thick. The houses were white, and in the streets the men in their Sunday clothes were playing bowls. Against the walls of some of the houses there were pear trees, their branches candelabraed against the white walls. The pear trees had been sprayed, and the walls of the houses were stained a metallic blue-green by the spray vapor. There were small clearings around the villages where the vines grew, and then the woods. In a village 20 kilometers above Spezia, there was a crowd in the square, and a young man carrying a suitcase came up to the car and asked us to take him to Spezia. "There are only 2 places, and they are occupied," I said. We had an old Ford coupe. "I will ride on the outside." "You will be uncomfortable." "That makes nothing. I must go to Spezia." "Should we take him?" I asked Guy. "He seems to be going anyway," Guy said. The young man handed in a parcel through the window. "Look after this," he said. 2 men tied his suitcase on the back of the car above our suitcases. He shook hands with everyone, explained that to a fascist and a man as used to traveling as himself there was no discomfort, and climbed up on the running board on the left-hand side of the car, holding on inside, his right arm through the open window. "You can start," he said. The crowd waved. He waved with his free hand. "What did he say?" Guy asked me. "That we could start." "Isn't he nice?" Guy said. The road followed a river. Across the river were mountains. The sun was taking the frost out of the grass. It was bright and cold, and the air came through the open windshield. "How do you think he likes it out there?" Guy was looking up the road. His view out of his side of the car was blocked by our guest. The young man projected from the side of the car like the figurehead of a ship. He had turned his coat collar up and pulled his hat down, and his nose looked cold in the wind. "Maybe he'll get enough of it," Guy said. "That's the side our bum tire's on." "Oh, he'd leave us if we blew out," I said. "He wouldn't get his traveling clothes dirty." "Well, I don't mind him," Guy said, "except the way he leans out on the turns." The woods were gone. The road had left the river to climb. The radiator was boiling. The young man looked annoyedly and suspiciously at the steam and rusty water. The engine was grinding, with both Guy's feet on the first speed pedal, up and up, back and forth and up, and finally out level. The grinding stopped, and in the new quiet there was a great churning bubbling in the radiator. We were at the top of the last range above Spezia and the sea. The road descended with short, barely rounded turns. Our guest hung out on the turns and nearly pulled the top-heavy car over. "You can't tell him not to," I said to Guy. "It's his sense of self-preservation. The great Italian sense." "The greatest Italian sense." We came down around curves through deep dust, the dust powdering the olive trees. Spezia spread below along the sea. The road flattened outside the town. Our guest put his head in the window. "I want to stop." "Stop it," I said to Guy. We slowed up at the side of the road. The young man got down, went to the back of the car, and untied the suitcase. "I stop here, so you won't get into trouble carrying passengers," he said. "My package." I handed him the package. He reached in his pocket. "How much do I owe you?" "Nothing." "Why not?" "I don't know," I said. "Then thanks," the young man said. Not thank you, or thank you very much, or thank you 1,000 times. all of which you formerly said in Italy to a man when he handed you a timetable or explained about a direction. The young man uttered the lowest form of the word, thanks, and looked after us suspiciously as Guy started the car. I waved my hand at him. He was too dignified to reply. We went on into Spezia. "That's a young man that will go a long way in Italy," I said to Guy. "Well," said Guy, "he went 20 kilometers with us." A meal in Spezia. We came into Spezia looking for a place to eat. The street was wide and the houses high and yellow. We followed the tram track into the center of town. On the walls of the houses were stenciled eye-bugging portraits of Mussolini with hand-painted vivas, the double V in black paint with drippings of paint down the wall. Side streets went down to the harbor. It was bright, and the people were all out for Sunday. The stone paving had been sprinkled, and there were damp stretches in the dust. We went close to the curb to avoid a tram. "Let's eat somewhere simple," Guy said. We stopped opposite 2 restaurant signs. We were standing across the street, and I was buying the papers. The 2 restaurants were side by side. A woman standing in the doorway of one smiled at us, and we crossed the street and went in. It was dark inside, and at the back of the room 3 girls were sitting at a table with an old woman. Across from us, at another table, sat a sailor. He sat there neither eating nor drinking. Further back, a young man in a blue suit was writing at a table. His hair was pomaded and shining, and he was very smartly dressed and clean-cut looking. The light came through the doorway and through the window where vegetables, fruit, steaks, and chops were arranged in a showcase. A girl came and took our order, and another girl stood in the doorway. We noticed that she wore nothing under her house dress. The girl who took our order put her arm around Guy's neck while we were looking at the menu. There were 3 girls in all, and they all took turns going and standing in the doorway. The old woman at the table in the back of the room spoke to them, and they sat down again with her. There was no doorway leading from the room except into the kitchen. A curtain hung over it. The girl who had taken our order came in from the kitchen with spaghetti. She put it on the table and brought a bottle of red wine and sat down at the table. "Well," I said to Guy, "you wanted to eat someplace simple." "This isn't simple. This is complicated." "What do you say?" asked the girl. "Are you Germans?" "South Germans," I said. "The South Germans are a gentle, lovable people." "Don't understand," she said. "What's the mechanics of this place?" Guy asked. "Do I have to let her put her arm around my neck?" "Certainly," I said. "Mussolini has abolished the brothels. This is a restaurant." The girl wore a one-piece dress. She leaned forward against the table and put her hands on her breasts and smiled. She smiled better on one side than on the other and turned the good side toward us. The charm of the good side had been enhanced by some event which had smoothed the outer side of her nose in, as warm wax can be smoothed. Her nose, however, did not look like warm wax. It was very cold and firm, only smoothed in. "You like me?" she asked Guy. "He adores you," I said, "but he doesn't speak Italian." "Ich spreche Deutsch," she said, and stroked Guy's hair. "Speak to the lady in your native tongue, Guy." "Where do you come from?" asked the lady. "Potsdam." "And you will stay here now for a little while?" "In this so dear Spezia?" I asked. "Tell her we have to go," said Guy. "Tell her we are very ill and have no money." My friend is a misogynist, I said, an old German misogynist. Tell him I love him. I told him. Will you shut your mouth and get us out of here? Guy said. The lady had placed another arm around his neck. Tell him he is mine, she said. I told him. Will you get us out of here? You are quarreling, the lady said. You do not love one another? We are Germans, I said proudly. Old South Germans. Tell him he is a beautiful boy, the lady said. Guy is 38 and takes some pride in the fact that he is taken for a traveling salesman in France. You are a beautiful boy, I said. Who says so? Guy asked. You or her? She does. I'm just your interpreter. Isn't that what you got me in on this trip for? I'm glad it's her, said Guy. I didn't want to have to leave you here, too. I don't know. Spezia's a lovely place. Spezia? The lady said. You are talking about Spezia? Lovely place, I said. It is my country, she said. Spezia is my home, and Italy is my country. She says that Italy is her country. Tell her it looks like her country, Guy said. What have you for dessert? I asked. Fruit, she said. We have bananas. Bananas are all right, Guy said. They've got skins on. Oh, he takes bananas? The lady said. She embraced Guy. What does she say? He asked, keeping his face out of the way. She is pleased because you take bananas. Tell her I don't take bananas. The signor does not take bananas. Ah, said the lady, crestfallen. He doesn't take bananas. Tell her I take a cold bath every morning, Guy said. The signor takes a cold bath every morning. No understand, the lady said. Across from us, the property sailor had not moved. No one in the place paid any attention to him. We want the bill, I said. Oh, no, you must stay. Listen, the clean-cut young man said from the table where he was writing. Let them go. These two are worth nothing. The lady took my hand. You won't stay? You won't ask him to stay? We have to go, I said. We have to get to Pisa, or if possible, Firenze tonight. We can amuse ourselves in those cities at the end of the day. It is now the day. In the day, we must cover distance. To stay a little while is nice. To travel is necessary during the light of day. Listen, the clean-cut young man said. Don't bother to talk with these two. I tell you they are worth nothing, and I know. Bring us the bill, I said. She brought the bill from the old woman and went back and sat at the table. Another girl came in from the kitchen. She walked the length of the room and stood in the doorway. Don't bother with these two, the clean-cut young man said in a wearied voice. Come and eat. They are worth nothing. We paid the bill and stood up. All the girls, the old woman, and the clean-cut young man sat down at a table together. The property sailor sat with his head in his hands. No one had spoken to him all the time we were at lunch. The girl brought us our change that the old woman counted out for her and went back to her place at the table. We left a tip on the table and went out. When we were seated in the car, ready to start, the girl came out and stood in the door. We started, and I waved to her. She did not wave, but stood there, looking after us. After the rain. It was raining hard when we passed through the suburbs of Genoa, and even going very slowly behind the tram cars and the motor trucks, liquid mud splashed onto the sidewalks so that people stepped into doorways as they saw us coming. In San Pier d'Arena, the industrial suburb outside of Genoa, there is a wide street with 2 car tracks, and we drove down the center to avoid sending the mud onto the men going home from work. On our left was the Mediterranean. There was a big sea running, and waves broke, and the wind blew the spray against the car. A riverbed that, when we had passed, going into Italy, had been wide, stony, and dry, was running brown and up to the banks. The brown water discolored the sea, and as the waves thinned and cleared in breaking, the light came through the yellow water, and the crests, detached by the wind, blew across the road. A big car passed us, going fast, and a sheet of muddy water rose up and over our windshield and radiator. The automatic windshield cleaner moved back and forth, spreading the film over the glass. We stopped and ate lunch at Sestri. There was no heat in the restaurant, and we kept our hats and coats on. We could see the car outside through the window. It was covered with mud, and was stopped beside some boats that had been pulled up beyond the waves. In the restaurant you could see your breath. The pasta asciutta was good. The wine tasted of alum, and we poured water in it. Afterward the waiter brought beefsteak and fried potatoes. A man and a woman sat at the far end of the restaurant. He was middle-aged, and she was young and wore black. All during the meal she would blow out her breath in the cold, damp air. The man would look at it and shake his head. They ate without talking, and the man held her hand under the table. She was good-looking, and they seemed very sad. They had a traveling bag with them. We had the papers, and I read the account of the Shanghai fighting aloud to Guy. After the meal, he left with the waiter in search for a place which did not exist in the restaurant, and I cleaned off the windshield, the lights, and the license plates with a rag. Guy came back, and we backed the car out and started. The waiter had taken him across the road and into an old house. The people in the house were suspicious, and the waiter had remained with Guy to see nothing was stolen. Although I don't know how, me not being a plumber, they expected me to steal anything, Guy said. As we came up on a headland beyond the town, the wind struck the car and nearly tipped it over. "It's good it blows us away from the sea," Guy said. "Well," I said, "they drowned Shelley somewhere along here." "That was down by Viareggio," Guy said. "Do you remember what we came to this country for?" "Yes," I said, "but we didn't get it." "We'll be out of it tonight, if we can get past Ventimiglia." "We'll see. I don't like to drive this coast at night." It was early afternoon, and the sun was out. Below, the sea was blue, with white caps running toward Savona. Back beyond the cape, the brown and blue water joined. Out ahead of us, a tramp steamer was going up the coast. "Can you still see Genoa?" Guy asked. "Oh, yes. That next big cape ought to put it out of sight." "We'll see it a long time yet. I can still see Portofino Cape behind it." Finally, we could not see Genoa. I looked back as we came out, and there was only the sea, and below in the bay a line of beach with fishing boats, and above, on the side of the hill, a town, and then capes far down the coast. "It's gone now," I said to Guy. "Oh, it's been gone a long time now." "But we couldn't be sure till we got way out." There was a sign with a picture of an S-turn and "Svolta pericolosa." The road curved around the headland, and the wind blew through the crack in the windshield. Below the cape was a flat stretch beside the sea. The wind had dried the mud, and the wheels were beginning to lift dust. On the flat road we passed a fascist riding a bicycle, a heavy revolver in a holster on his back. He held the middle of the road on his bicycle, and we turned out for him. He looked up at us as we passed. Ahead there was a railway crossing, and as we came toward it, the gates went down. As we waited, the fascist came up on his bicycle. The train went by, and Guy started the engine. "Wait!" the bicycle man shouted from behind the car. "Your number's dirty." I got out with a rag. The number had been cleaned at lunch. "You can read it," I said. "You think so?" "Read it." "I cannot read it. It is dirty." I wiped it off with the rag. "How's that?" 25 lira. "What?" I said. "You could have read it. It's only dirty from the state of the roads." "You don't like Italian roads?" "They are dirty." 50 lira. He spat in the road. "Your car is dirty, and you are dirty too." "Good. And give me a receipt with your name." He took out a receipt book, made in duplicate and perforated, so one side could be given to the customer and the other side filled in and kept as a stub. There was no carbon to record what the customer's ticket said. "Give me 50 lira." He wrote in indelible pencil, tore out the slip, and handed it to me. I read it. "This is for 25 lira. "A mistake," he said, and changed the 25 to 50. "And now the other side. Make it 50 in the part you keep." He smiled a beautiful Italian smile and wrote something on the receipt stub, holding it so I could not see. "Go on," he said, "before your number gets dirty again." We drove for 2 hours after it was dark and slept in Mentone that night. It seemed very cheerful and clean and sane and lovely. We had driven from Ventimiglia to Pisa and Florence, across the Romagna to Rimini, back through Forli, Imola, Bologna, Parma, Pacienza, and Genoa to Ventimiglia again. The whole trip had taken only 10 days. Naturally, in such a short trip, we had no opportunity to see how things were with the country or the people. $50,000. "How are you going yourself, Jack?" I asked him. "You seen this wall cut?" he says. "Just in the gym." "Well," Jack says, "I'm going to need a lot of luck with that boy." "He can't hit you, Jack," Soldier said. "I wish to hell he couldn't." "He couldn't hit you with a handful of birdshot." "Birdshot'd be all right," Jack says. "I wouldn't mind birdshot any." "He looks easy to hit," I said. "Sure," Jack says. "He ain't going to last long. He ain't going to last like you and me, Jerry, but right now he's got everything." "You'll left-hand him to death." "Maybe," Jack says. "Sure, I got a chance to." "Handle him like you handled Kid Lewis." "Kid Lewis," Jack said. "That kike?" The three of us, Jack Brennan, Soldier Bartlett, and I, were in Hanley's. There were a couple of broads sitting at the next table to us. They had been drinking. "What do you mean, kike?" one of the broads says. "What do you mean, kike, you big Irish bum?" "Sure," Jack says. "That's it." "Kikes," this broad goes on. "They're always talking about kikes, these big Irishmen. What do you mean, kikes?" "Come on, let's get out of here." "Kikes," this broad goes on. "Who ever saw you buy a drink? Your wife sews your pockets up every morning. These Irishmen and their kikes. Ted Lewis could lick you, too." "Sure," Jack says. "And you give away a lot of things free, too, don't you?" We went out. That was Jack. He could say what he wanted to when he wanted to say it. Jack started training out at Danny Hogan's health farm over in Jersey. It was nice out there, but Jack didn't like it much. He didn't like being away from his wife and the kids, and he was sore and grouchy most of the time. He liked me, and we got along fine together, and he liked Hogan.
But after a while, Soldier Bartlett commenced to get on his nerves. A kidder gets to be an awful thing around a camp if his stuff goes sort of sour. Soldier was always kidding Jack, just sort of kidding him all the time. It wasn't very funny, and it wasn't very good, and it began to get to Jack. It was sort of stuff like this. Jack would finish up with the weights and the bag and pull on the gloves. "You want to work?" he'd say to Soldier. "Sure. How you want me to work?" Soldier would ask. "Want me to treat you rough like Walcott? Want me to knock you down a few times?" "That's it," Jack would say. He didn't like it any, though. One morning we were all out on the road. We'd been out quite a way, and now we were coming back. We'd go along fast for 3 minutes and then walk a minute, and then go fast for 3 minutes again. Jack wasn't ever what you would call a sprinter. He'd move around fast enough in the ring if he had to, but he wasn't any too fast on the road. All the time we were walking, Soldier was kidding him. We came up the hill to the farmhouse. "Well," says Jack, "you better go back to town, Soldier." "What do you mean?" "You better go back to town and stay there." "What's the matter?" "I'm sick of hearing you talk." "Yes," says Soldier. "Yes," says Jack. "You'll be a damn sight sicker when Walcott gets through with you." "Sure," says Jack. "Maybe I will. But I know I'm sick of you." So Soldier went off on the train to town that same morning. I went down with him to the train. He was good and sore. "I was just kidding him," he said. We were waiting on the platform. "He can't pull that stuff with me, Jerry." "He's nervous and crabby," I said. "He's a good fellow, Soldier." "The hell he is. The hell he's ever been a good fellow." "Well," I said, "so long, Soldier." The train had come in. He climbed up with his bag. "So long, Jerry," he says. "You be in town before the fight?" "I don't think so." "See you then." He went in, and the conductor swung up, and the train went out. I rode back to the farm in the cart. Jack was on the porch writing a letter to his wife.